Hello, everyone. Nice to see you today. Everybody unmute while we say hello. Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Nice to hear your voices. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Very nice to see you all today. We're so glad you're with us. I'm Dr. Judy Ann Kellaway, the Associate Dean for Admissions and Outreach here at the Long School of Medicine. And Vanessa is part of our A team. She's here to help us. Thank you, Vanessa. And it's great to have you all with us today. The topic is interviewing. And the topic is interviewing. And I think in this presentation, there is everything that you can think of. So if we're not hitting a topic, like write it down so we can add it in the notes or something, okay? I hope that a lot of you are looking to apply this cycle and that you'll find this useful. Vanessa and I were just talking about admissions cycle and, you know, what people do. What I did was went through the whole thing really without thinking. And I think that that's why I love to talk to you. I was like floating along. I know I showed up at interviews thinking, I know my application, what could they ask me that I couldn't like think of an answer for? But I think it really helps you to prepare. So I hope that you will take that to heart and that there will be lots and lots of hints for you today. So you're going to ace that interview. How many people are in the cycle? Let me pull up my chat too, so I can follow that. How many? Show me again. How many in the cycle? Good. Okay, that's great. I hope to help you with this, and if there's anything else that we can help you with, please reach out. That's awesome. Okay, thank you. All righty. Now, I think everybody can see the screen. You're going to ace that interview. What is the purpose of the interview, right? It's to find out about you in person, who you are as a person interacting with another person or other people. You get a chance to tell your story. And very importantly, and I'm coming back to this, lots of time, many times, what are your personal attributes? What personal attributes do you possess? So, and a common question is, how important is this? It is, it's very important, as you know. I don't know, maybe somebody out there knows, I don't know if there's a medical school out there that admits people without personal interview. So it's very important, and it's a chance to think about how you'll present yourself as a professional. You know, let's start with the simple things. If you don't have anxiety about going to a medical school interview, there might be something wrong with you. Just kidding. But you should think about anything that's sort of making you nervous. It's a formal occasion. You don't always know what to expect. Who are you going to get? What questions are they going to ask? So it is a little bit scary. Maybe after this, though, maybe after you're well prepared, you won't be nervous about it. And then that would be a good thing. But two big factors, of course, are communication skills and content. So these can go away. I'm going to say practice often too. Practice is going to help this and help all the scariness go away. Practicing your communication skills, verbal and nonverbal, and then knowing what to expect from the content and what you might say in response to different kinds of questions. So do you know that you make an impression in 7 seconds? Has anybody heard that little factoid? That's a little scary there, but I think that if you go in prepared, you're ready to do this. Look at the nonverbal portion of that. The nonverbal portion of making an impression is the larger part, exceeding verbal and those fillers. So let's talk about some nonverbals. I'm watching the chat. You can unmute. What are some nonverbal things that you should be paying attention to in an interview setting?
Eye contact.
Great. So that's probably mentioned a lot in reviewing interviews. That's hard, see, because you're down there for me, Jordan, so I'm not making eye contact with you. It's hard in a virtual setting, but you have got to pay attention to it, right? What else have we got? I'm watching the chat. Good. Grooming. So why do we care about nonverbal? Do you, what my hands are doing? Very good. Very good. What else?
Your facial expressions.
Good. I think that's a big one too. So eye contact, eyes are on your face. Your face is going to be very important. Your posture is very important. Good. Thank y'all so much for contributing. What else? Do you want to see the exhaustive list that I have compiled now? Posture, demeanor, online background. So thank you, Nathan, because, you know, I was thinking about the person, but that environment around you is going to be, that's an important nonverbal. Let me look at all these things. These have come up in situations or questions. There's your space that Nathan mentioned, the backgrounds. We'll talk about that too, how to present yourself in the best way in a virtual environment. Your facial expression, how you're carrying yourself. If you are not in the little box, but you're in an in-person setting, handshake, gestures, are you jiggling your, do you have restless legs? Are you moving? None of these things should detract from the message, right? So when we say watch your grooming, pay attention to your clothing and jewelry, these are not ways that you want to stand out. You want to be remembered for your thought processes, your intelligence, the way you describe all your experiences. And the other things can be, you might be just super at everything, but you want to, you want the message to stand out. You don't want other things to stand out. Did you watch the superpower? Maybe we need to do superpowers again. So the superpower video, I think, is online, and being positive is a superpower and smiling is contagious. Do I come back to this? I don't know if I come back to this. So let me just say right now, when we are smiling, people think we look approachable, attractive. People think we look, according to studies, this is according to studies, people think we look intelligent and capable when we are smiling. So everybody, put it on, put the smile on your face. And when we're concentrating on so many other things, or if we're nervous, like when I'm nervous, I have to remember to smile. And sometimes I'm just thinking in an interview setting, when I'm talking to someone, I'm trying to like look at their story and process things. And when I'm thinking like that, I don't smile. So you might have to really stop and make, like, stick some stickies on your screen that say smile, smile, smile. Be attentive, be engaged. Your face definitely tells a story, and so a positive appearance, smiling, engagement is going to go a long way. Okay, let a positive attitude show through. Sometimes, don't you agree that in a virtual environment, that's hard to do? So you might have to exaggerate that. And that's why I say stick stickies up, smile, be attentive, nod. Maybe you want to take notes to show. I usually on interview day tell people to take notes because we're sharing so much information. But you might want to do that, not just to share the information, but to show, to demonstrate that you are engaged, So all of those are positive. This is picture we can talk about a little bit. Who do you want to interview, and who would you rate highly? This is interview day. So honestly, I'm not real excited about talking to her. Can you see my pointer? Okay, so I'm not real excited about, like, I'm even maybe a little scared to approach her with the frown on her face. The camera caught her at the wrong moment. What do you think of other people? Any comments? Ricardo, I know you want to say something.
Most of the people that are smiling, more approachable.
Yes, I think so. I think so. Now let's look at what other nonverbal cues do you see?
Probably for the woman who's to the far left, who doesn't have the shirt tucked in, that would be something that I would notice.
So thank you, Ruby. I think combined with her bangs a little bit, I'm not one to talk today. We were just talking about like cutting bangs, but the bangs are like down in her face and her shirt tail. That's sort of 2 points for messiness, you know. I think, why does this matter? These, you're an individual. Why shouldn't you just be able to dress or be any way you want to be? Do you know why? You do know why, right? It's not about you. It's about taking care of people. And you want to, again, you want your physician's message. You as a physician, you as a doctor, you want that message to stand out, not the fact that you might need a haircut or look a little sloppy that day. When in other studies, it matters to patients what their doctors look like. And that doesn't mean, handsomeness, attractiveness. It means, are you neat and tidy? It worries me if a doctor walks into the room and they're not tidy. Like, what else is kind of sloppy? Like, is their work sloppy, So we do it out of the respect and best care we can give to our patients. So everybody else is looking pretty good. A little, I would ask this young lady to stand up straight. And maybe there are a few haircuts here that need to be had. But the facial expressions, the vast majority are good, right? The verbal parts of our message are important also, of course. Think about this when you practice. And if you have an opportunity to practice with others, that is the best practice, of course. And Vanessa is going to remind me to put in a little advertisement. What do you call it? A plug for the mock and talk. Every year our LMSA group does a mock and talk, so it's a practice interview setting. So we're happy to invite you. Then you get to talk to someone. Are you speaking clearly? Are you articulate in your message? Are you organized? If you're not naturally this way as an oral communicator, you might want to practice. This tells us a lot. Do you talk nonstop in that interview setting? So the answer might require a long answer, right? But are you reading the room? Are you seeing that I am sort of like leaning forward or ready to ask you the next question? You need to sort of be able to feel that if you are going along, right? And you can always say, oh, I've got more to say. I'll stop there, You don't want it's like Goldilocks. You don't want your answers too short or too long. You want them just right. But you can if there's more to say, if there's lots more that you have to say, you can always say, I've got more to that if you want to hear it. But you have to read the other person in that room, especially maybe if it's virtual, so that you know when to take a breath. Are you answering the question? You might be going off on a tangent. How is your volume? How is your tone of the conversation? So try to pay attention to those things beforehand in practice sessions before you hit the real thing. Practice. I think that is such a key, and there are so many ways to do this. You put your hands on every single interview question that you possibly can. And don't just read through the list, because when you're reading through, you're going, oh, yes, I know the answer to that. Oh, yes, my favorite book is such and such. Oh, yes, I know the answer to this and that. But when you voice them out loud and articulate them, it gives you a chance to organize your thoughts so that you're putting across a clear message. Okay, we have a 3-page, we're going on 3 pages now, a document with 3 pages of interview questions that we'll post in the chat for you today so that you have some things to practice. practice in the mirror. Used to say practice in the mirror, and now I say practice on Zoom. Record yourself answering, pick out some major questions. And practice on Zoom sessions, and then review them critically for yourself. And then I know some of you are non-traditional and not in school anymore. Some of you are in school or organizations, but everybody has friends. Everybody has friends who's helping them along the way. So share those videos with people who can help you put your finger on things to improve, okay? This is key. This is very key. Find examples in your journey, okay? I'm going to skip down here. Make sure you're answering the question. Find examples in your journey. Know your answers. If you know your application and you have reflected on all of these questions and pieces of information and experiences in your application, then you are going to have depth in your answer. Okay, a very common thing I tell you occasionally here and there that somebody might say is the person was perfectly lovely and the application was full of great things, but the answers were a little superficial. That's kind of a common comment in admissions committees everywhere. And you know what that means? It means you need to reflect and think of the long answer. Think of the super long answer to one small question so that you can get very good kernels of meaningful things to say out of that, okay? So I think that those are very important. Practice, practice, practice. Don't interrupt people. Sometimes we're so anxious to we know the answer. We've got the perfect example from our application. We want to get it out there, so we interrupt the person before they've even finished asking the question. So watch that, be a good listener. We get excited, but make sure you're delivering all this with a calm speed. You do need to learn to think on your feet. How would you practice that? Here's what I would do. I would cut up questions and put them in a fishbowl and Zoom, be on Zoom or in the bathroom mirror practicing, and pull out a question and answer it. So learn how to sort of think on your feet. It's always okay, I think, to say, can I think about that? If an interviewer asks you a question, I think it's always okay to say, could I just have a minute to think about that? And that could always be potential, for something you haven't come across, even if you're well prepared. That helps you practice, organize your thoughts, work on your vocabulary, and try to get rid of the unnecessary fillers. That's fair. It's interesting to me, after interviewing for decades and decades, that we have seasons of different fillers. So a lot of people say that's fair now in response to a comment or things like that. So anyway, watch those, and certainly no expletives or anything close to that. I know you'd be surprised, right? I see a few people expressing surprise. I'm always surprised to hear it. You will retain, in an interview setting, you will retain your professional demeanor, and you will comport yourself as a professional, even when it seems there's a group setting or a student setting. We're not the only school that has student interviewers. And sometimes people feel so much more relaxed and at ease. It's a peer, it's a near peer, it's somebody closer to your age. And we make a friendly, welcoming environment anyway, but sometimes people let it all down, and that's when we hear some slang. You should, you should watch that, please. Just, it's a professional, yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you for explaining things in the chat too. You can't know exactly what's going to happen, but by exploring, by attending things like this and doing some exploring when you are invited to an interview, you get a chance to see what that school might be like. So go on the internet and explore what's happening on that school's interview day. Where are you going? I mean, virtually and physically. Is this like the number one question everybody has? Will there be interview days that are virtual in the entry year 2023? Are you all asking that question? So the answer is yes. Sorry, I didn't lead with that. The vast majority of schools across the country are going to have virtual interview days. The difference this year, though, is who's disappointed to hear that? I think a lot of people are disappointed to hear that on the surface, but then when I say this year, the difference is that we're planning ahead of time to have campus experiences. That vast majority of schools will have campus visits of various sorts. Okay, people who are invited to interview will have our interview day luncheon will be an asynchronous event. We have sort of a famous interview day luncheon that I'm very glad we're bringing back. Pasta bar, it's just great, hosted by students and faculty at your table. It's a really nice event. So whatever's happening, inform yourself about those sorts of things. Get all your links up, ready to go. Be there early, find out a little bit about the school and the mission. You might take some notes. You might even, I definitely would use, we have a matrix that was developed by a student who was trying to figure out what school they'd like to go to. And I'm happy, Vanessa's happy to post that too if we have requests for it. I do usually give it out to applicants or interviewees rather. You might think of some things you want to ask questions about. If you can be specific, that's good. I would never fault someone for not asking a question. On interview day, for example, you're going to be just deluged with information about that school and their mission. And if you don't have any questions right then at the time of the interview, that's fine. I would much rather have somebody say, I don't have any questions right now. Or, you know, I've learned so much this morning, all my questions were answered, rather than having one. You know, there are some interview advice resources that say you better have a question, you know, for every interviewer. And I just don't agree with that. And it just sounds mechanical, robotic almost to me, you know. So, and a lot of them that are asked have been answered that day. So I want to say, like, were you paying attention? So think about that and see if you can find some that are genuine questions that you haven't had answered yet. So you might run into unexpectedly difficult scenarios. So do not panic. In fact, this is what we do in surgical training. When we're learning to be a surgeon, you think of every bad thing that could happen at every step along the way and think, what would I do? What would I do now? And I've got 3 ways to remedy this step if something happens. And for the next step, what else could happen? If something bad happens, I've got remedies right here. This is what I do if. So that's what you should do for interview day. Be ready for any type of personality, somebody who looks, I don't think anybody's going to be purposefully mean, but somebody who might come off as mean. Maybe they're overly friendly and you're not expecting that. Maybe they're bland. Maybe they're looking at their notes the whole time. Maybe they're using up all that precious interview time to talk about themselves. Maybe they're unprepared, or you think they're unprepared. You think that they should have read your application and they're asking you questions as if they didn't. So that's not, I want to say, that's not so bad. And you might not know who's blinded to what, or if it is really an open file, although those are some things you can do. I think that's not so bad. But if you let me back up, practice. You're going to have to practice your answers, right? And another common question is, how do I not sound like rehearsed and mechanical if I'm practicing and practicing? You need to muster up your passion, your enthusiasm for this. You know, you're excited about this plan that you have for your future, and you even though you've practiced the answer in your excuse me, you're on your 10th interview, you like work up that enthusiasm so that you can share that enthusiastically. That's one of the things, those are personal attributes that we're looking for in the interview. How excited and enthusiastic are you about this? Where's your passion? And that's because we're human, and because human beings, we react with each other and we bounce I think, feelings off of each other. If you are interviewing with a potato, somebody who is just not giving you any feedback at all, you have to be ready anyway to be enthusiastic and to show the passion, even if you're not seeing like this friendly, assenting face on the other side of the screen. Okay. So just do it and pretend like it's the first time, muster that enthusiasm so that we can really see it. So difficult questions, don't panic, be prepared. So I think especially if I was walking into an MMI situation, a group interview, or that's supposed to be a group interview or a panel interview, that would make me a little more nervous, even having thought about it and being prepared. So be prepared. You'll know which schools are going to put you in a group or you will be in a panel type interview. So ethical situations can sort of throw us off sometimes. Examples in your story, know those examples so that you don't draw a blank, but there also might be things that are, maybe not, what do I want to say, less than great things. Maybe there's a grade or something that's less than great and you need some, somebody's going to ask you about it. So have those answers prepared. Sometimes people ask what happens if you don't get in. I don't really like that question. I think it used to be used a lot more in older times, but now we have, just by sheer numbers, so many people who don't get in every year just because there's not enough spots for everyone. Be prepared to talk about your weaknesses. I really hate questions asking pre-meds to solve US healthcare problems when a bunch of experts, around the world can't get it together. So, be prepared for it. And I also think it's okay to say, I just really don't know. And we've got a bunch of experts. I try to listen and learn. That's a perfectly wonderful answer. This is a plug for power. So all of those, the last couple of slides where, we're talking about kind of some difficult situations, you might think ahead so that you can navigate them in the moment. This is a plug for power. If you don't know Amy Cuddy and her TED Talk, then please write that down for homework and practice her. She gives everybody a life hack. She calls it a life hack for confidence that is just invaluable. And it really, really, really works to stand in a mirror and not just put yourself in the Wonder Woman, Superman power pose, but to think of yourself as a confident person. It changes you physiologically. It changes your body. So use it. It is a superpower. Amy Cuddy, C-U-D-D-Y. Ruby.
Hi, Dr. Kellaway. You were talking about the MMIs and the group panels on the last slide. I was just wanting to see what the format is for long. I think I saw that there were 2 different interviews on that day.
Ours are traditional. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I interrupted you. Would you like to finish your sentence?
Oh, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, what we do here at Long is, and lots of people do a traditional interview. Ours is a advertised and maintained as a super friendly, very relaxed, can you be relaxed and professional? Yes, you absolutely can. So it's a relaxed professional environment, a nice exchange of ideas, mostly centered on you and what you've been doing. Just a nice friendly conversation for 25 minutes. Sometimes they're back to back. We have 2 traditional. Usually you get to talk to one of our committee members and usually also a senior student, which is a great perspective. A lot of times people have questions for the students that they don't necessarily have for other interviewers because the student has been through 4 years here. So they're kind of focused on the assets of Long School of Medicine. Did I answer you? Can you think of follow-ups? Any follow-ups? Okay, great. We're going to get to other components too. So remember, you are going to come to visit. I think that this is still a demonstration of your professionalism. So you're coming as an applicant or an interviewee. So you want to comport yourself as a professional again. The committee evaluations, we will try to advertise on our website. And I think everybody who is doing this, every other school who's doing this kind of a system will tell you on their website and in person that the committee evaluation will be separated in terms of any admissions decisions from the campus visit. You know, the committee work is usually done. We're going to invite our interviewed applicants to the luncheon. We still might have a parallel campus visit program, but they're separated. So that means it works in all different ways. It means that showing up does not give you points. It means that not showing up is not detrimental. If you can't, I mean, one of the primary reasons all of the schools in the US are doing virtual is that we have created accessibility to our applicant pool where they did not have accessibility before. So instead of somebody watching their resources going lower and lower and having to decide, am I going to interview at this school or this school? Where are my chances? What do I think? What do I want to do? You can go to both because it's a click of a button. So, but the campus visits for all of us are going to be separate unless they have a stated interview component there, then you would know about that. People are watching you. Table manners. People, you're a professional, so display professional table manners and make new friends, have fun with it. A common question is, I'd like to thank everybody for the interview. How do I do that? So we have ways that we tell you on our interview day website. And we love emails and the physical cards that come along later to say thank you. And there are other tips about the content of that letter. It's fine to simply say thank you. Sometimes people reference what our discussion was, and that's always fun too. You never, this is not a practice when you are invited by a medical school to be an interviewed applicant. This is not practice. This is for real. So you don't ask for feedback. You would never say, how did I do? Because that is for other sessions, other practice type sessions. And some of our interviewers are taken aback and don't know quite how to answer, and because it's inappropriate for that real interview setting. Everybody understands that, I think. So there are other assessment methods that people use, group interviews. So you might be in a group of applicants. They're often looking that the group interviews, panel interviews would mean that there's there are fewer applicants, but several interviewers, 2 or more interviewers. And then there are some manipulative or problem-solving interview settings. So in group interviews, you can imagine they're looking for collaboration. They're looking, do you display respect with regard to what other people are saying? Are you engaged in what other people are saying? Or are you out there trying to sell yourself? So that's probably, you can all recognize that's not a great thing. Panel interviews sometimes done for efficiency to get a different take on a person. I think you find that preparing yourself in all the ways that we've discussed and that we're going to talk about are the same way you prepare for these as well. The problem solving ones are interesting. Like, don't solve it all by yourself. If there are more than a few applicants in the room, they're not looking for the person who can solve the problem. They're looking for how you work as a team thrown together to solve a problem. So communicate and listen. You might suggest or delegate if it's appropriate that somebody seems to have a talent for something, or praise somebody. That's a really great idea. Let's try that. and I think you can redirect or correct information from other people respectfully. Don't take over and don't hang back, but be engaged in the activity. I think that those are some hard things, and just everything we said already. A big component in several different ways for the interview component of interview processes are situational judgment tests. I think you know a lot about these so far. These are the MMI, the Casper, the preview is the new I should have listed it on there. The preview is the professional readiness exam. It's the AAMC's situational judgment test. I can tell you a little bit about each type. In general, interview questions are just sort of general, what's your favorite book, or I don't know, various types of things. Behavioral and situational are the other big categories that you're going to run into in situational judgment tests, MMI and Casper. The behavioral ones will refer, here's your prompt, tell me about a time when you did something, okay? Tell me about a time that you helped someone. And how did that feel, or how did that go? Tell me about a time that you had to work with someone that you had conflict with. What did you do? What did you learn? Even if it's a failure, do you know that we learn from those? And it's okay to say, you know, I now have some better skills to deal with these kinds of situations. So those are behavioral. What have you done in the past? What would you do? What would you do if you disagreed with a supervisor, for example? What would you do if somebody told you to do something you knew was was ruled by some HIPAA guidelines or something like that? How do you maneuver in those kinds of situations? So these, you need some novel problem solving skills. Tell me about a time. Those behavioral ones mean that is another situation where you have to look at your application and pick out examples of things, okay, about working in a difficult situation, about having a challenge, or even failing at a challenging situation, but learning from it, those kinds of things. And they're going to add those, for sure, will come up in your interview day, in your many interview days ahead. All schools will tell you that they do a holistic review. I'll remind you that is metrics, experiences, and attributes. You work on your grades, right? When you're making B's, you work harder and find study skills to help you make A's. If you're making A's already, you work to make that more efficient, or to challenge yourself with more rigorous coursework and that sort of thing. You work on your experiences. How do I want to help people? How do I want to learn about healthcare? You explore those avenues and get those accomplished. But do you work on your personal attributes? This is a theme for me because I think it's very important, and we can all learn to do better. You can refer to that video. I don't know when we've done the last personal growth plan, but look at that, and you can make these grow in the MMIs, in the Casper, in the, maybe a little less, but still contained in another situational judgment test, the preview by the AAMC. They are looking for very specific attributes that we all think, you would agree, that we all think make a good physician. Look at these. I like the Casper because it's like 10 simple things that I think cover things. The AAM competencies are listed below, but look up these lists of medical student competencies and you'll see what we're looking for. These are personal attributes. Judge yourself on them. Maybe take up a project to be a better problem solver. How? I think you can devise a plan to be a better problem solver, which will help you in that team interview, or with certain answers to questions, and it will just help you in life, right? If you read about some principles of problem solving. Collaborate, they're worth listing out loud. Collaboration, communication, empathy, equity, ethics, self-awareness, a critical, realistic view of yourself and where you are in this, resilience, adaptability, flexibility, professionalism, problem solving, motivation, okay? All great things. Here's the key. how do you bring these across to people? So when you write your application, you should have somebody go through it and say, here are 10 personal attributes. What do you see in my application? They show up in your essays. There's 3 chances there in your most meaningful experience, answers, in all kinds of, are you non-traditional, and in every blurb that you've in the actual activity and the blurb you write about it. All of these personal attributes come across. It's not just in the interview setting, and it's not just in your letters of recommendation. So when you're writing the answers or speaking answers in an interview, what's coming across there? Okay, I would like carry that list around with me and like check it every now and then. What have I done today to solve a problem? How was my communication today? Those sorts of things, like attend to those things and you'll see them grow in yourself. So in preparing for these things, the Casper website itself is a great resource. I think the AAMC, I didn't list it on here, but always their pre-med resources are phenomenal. So make sure you check those first line resources. But read about group dynamics, read about problem solving, read about solving an ethical case. I think there is a wealth of information on YouTube, and there are books and things on the internet that you can read about principles. Develop an awareness. You may be very passionate about something. When we're passionate about something, sometimes it's hard to see other people's point of view. You must be able to see other points of view. And can't you see how this is going to make you a much more culturally aware, culturally sensitive physician, right? Make a list. You could even make a list of these experiences, what they taught you, what personal attributes you grew in those experiences from this is all in preparation for your interview days. And think about those personal attributes. One of the things in the Casper you should do, I think I get to this, but I'm going to say it right now. When you're taking the Casper, it's 3 minutes for your response. Can you kind of see what they're asking? Is this a scenario? Is this a situational judgment question that is looking for teamwork, right? So name it. Make sure you're in your answer, you're referring to how you're going to collaborate with your teammates or the people involved in the scenario to have a win-win ending solution to the whole thing. So in preparation, you do have to type. You have to type fast. So if that's a challenge for you, just start like typing like old typing classes or something, right? I think there's a way to use Grammarly, although your grammar and spelling do not count against you when the raters are rating your Casper test, okay? But slang does matter. Slang does matter. Casper's done a lot to help mitigate the disparities that we see. All tests may have bias against some groups and in favor of other groups. So in June 2020, Casper came out with, I think it was a 4 or 6 point plan to try to mitigate some of the disparities. And part of that was having, I think they have 3 or 4 video responses now. Somebody may know better than I and can put it in the chat, but now they have video responses, which help to mitigate that. When you're in the test, take a few minutes to understand the scenario. Focus on the important thing. What is the thing to be solved in this situation? Look at all the questions first. Sometimes they give you some hints about, if you're off on a tangent, it'll bring you back into better focus about the scenario. Demonstrate an understanding of the issue. Present all sides. You can say, I can see it from my supervisor's angle. They don't want to, give the cash back without a receipt. I can understand that but we're going to work as a team to do this. How about, I feel so sorry for this person. I just want to help them in some way. Like, type it. If it's running through your head, type it so that you can show compassion while you're answering the question. They do look for originality, and there are no right or wrong answers. Okay. understand, also advice given is understand the various roles in the scene. Focus on your role. They're asking you to focus on your role in the scenario. This is all Casper, not so much preview, but also for MMI. So this is mostly those types of situational judgment tests. Think about what's the win-win-win. Where's the solution that everybody gets a little something, right? So you want the most effective outcome and the outcome with the least negative effects on anybody in the scene, okay? Are you bewildered right now about how you would answer those questions? Some of you, I think, have been through it, but it's a challenge. But if you think about it ahead of time, you can come out, I think, a little bit stronger. Think about how am I think this question is about resilience. How am I going to demonstrate that? Or I think this is about compassion for others. How am I going to demonstrate that in my response? And make sure that it's not implied. Make sure that you're very specific about including those thoughts that would display one of those personal attributes. So you don't have to be perfect at everything. Nobody's perfect at everything. We understand that you're learners, you're novices to this whole thing. We're looking for people who are flexible and can grow, as well as people who have strengths in certain areas. And all of this preparation and practice that I'm telling you about, it doesn't mean that you're gaming the test. If you study problem solving, if you study decision making, I think it might help you in some of these scenarios, but I also think that it makes you a better person, right? It means you're working on becoming better. Again, you might refer to that personal growth plan if you want to work more consistently on something. There is so much help on YouTube, so please reach out there. I have heard about some sources also on Reddit. It seems like I wanted to say something else. Let's see. Hopefully it'll come back to me. And then there are lots of podcasts on TMDSAS about this. Oh, I know what else I wanted to mention. The preview test is multiple choice, in case you didn't know, and they will give you some sample questions so that you can work through these. The multiple choice, the answers to the multiple choice, there is one best answer, but some of the others look reasonable. And these answers were chosen, they were developed and chosen by faculty members at a variety of medical schools who put this test together for the AAMC effort. Okay, so it's really a bit different. Same principles at work there. So more notes on other components, being virtual and virtual live like this, real-time interviews on screen, but there are also people who are going to ask you to record videos. Some schools, I think Dell still does a screening video. So find out what people are asking. The virtual interviews is a little different than an asynchronous standardized one-way video interview. That's our SOVI, that we have a platform. We don't care if you answer in 30 seconds. We don't need you to be an emergency room physician right this second and make snap decisions, good decisions. We want you to think about it. We want you to prepare. We give you 2 questions. They're not secret questions. It's something like, I love this one because everybody smiles. It's tell me about something that's a proud accomplishment of yours. And usually people, that's the second one, people answer it second, and whatever they've been doing ahead of time before in the other question, everybody just beams. And the reason we chose to require the SOVI this year, we developed it in the beginning because so many committee members would say, gosh, this person was so fun, like constantly all committee day. I wish you all could have met this person. They're just wonderful. And this gives us a chance, our committee, a chance to see everybody sort of in action. So you get all the time you want to prepare. You can come back with notes, and you can do like 20 takes if you wish. You can come back on a better day or a better hair day, whatever, and just make a short professional recording So you want to for all of these virtual interviews at schools, you want to record yourself, practice the technology, see how you are on screen, test your camera and mic. You all have plenty of experience now, right? So this should be almost automatic now, but make sure you're not going to lose power or Wi-Fi, dependable Wi-Fi, meaning if you need, here's where you can check it at speed test. I'm sure there are a number of other places you can do that, but some of our interviewees need to find a suitable place. We have even let people borrow rooms here at our institution in San Antonio to interview for another school. So most people are very accommodating if you just reach out, make your bed, or better yet, have a neutral background or blur. Love the background blur. It makes it very easy. There are a couple of schools who will give you a standardized background to use. Oh gosh, this is long. Let's see. Find out which platform is like. We're very comfortable with Zoom here. Teams, not so much. WebEx, I don't like either of the other alternatives. But so if you're like me and you feel like not so great about one or two of those platforms, make sure you practice it, okay? Become familiar with it. The video is on at all times, okay, on your interview day. I understand our setting is sometimes you cannot be. Video on at all time. No excuses unless it's, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get connectivity. We understand that and can even reschedule or whatever. Whole face should be on the screen. Make sure everything's positioned well, good lighting. You probably shouldn't have light behind you. Eye contact, so you're trying to look near the camera, okay? And sometimes that's a challenge, but move the boxes, make your screen small or something so that you can approximate that eye contact. Mute yourself unless asked. Put your real name on screen ahead of time. Eliminate distractions. Sometimes you can't. So your real name on the screen, you've had Zoom meetings where you can't change. That's a setting. So we allow changes, but so make sure that your profile setting is your first and last name in case you get into an interview at a school that has a setting where you cannot change it. Eliminate distractions, warn everybody in your house if everything else is fine, but you don't want, sisters and brothers or somebody coming in, remind everybody that you'll be locked in your room for a while. Emphasize your attentiveness and engage in the emojis and chat functions. We try to do that here. So you would do that if invited. We welcome people to do that. I think it helps our engagement. Know your instructions, follow the instructions, read everything for every school that you can get a hold of. Dress for the occasion, top to bottom, top to bottom. This is not just, yes, I think some funny things have probably happened here and there. I know residency programs rarely have asked somebody to stand up in the midst of their residency interview. I don't know of any medical school interviews that have done that, but just like a surgeon puts on scrubs, washes their hands and puts on a sterile gown, a priest puts on vestments to do something, a ritual, important, meaningful thing. You're going to a professional, you dress yourself like a professional, and then that puts you in the spirit of the occasion. Comport yourself like a professional, sit up straight. Every now I have to remind myself that all the time. Sit up straight and remind yourself to smile and maybe use a cup for water. That's a small thing. So I'm ready for questions. Here are some: Duet, Casper Snapshot, how to prepare for these things. I'll go over them, but I'm going to stop my screen and get you back and see. Let me see. I don't have any new questions in the chat, I don't think. So Duet is part. Does anybody want to know? I think most of these have come from the questions that you submitted with your registration. So let me tell you about Duet. The Casper company, the Altus company, does a lot for medical school admissions. I think they've got a good mission to help everybody prepare, to help schools do assessments. So it's another tool. This is a mission matching tool, and it's in the suite. So once you pay for the big test, the Casper, you have access to do snapshot and duet for the schools that are requesting it. So the snapshot is their video interview. They don't have as much flexibility as we do. I think they give you 30 seconds and then you must say the answer. So when they have more flexibility, we'll do snapshot maybe, but the duet is the third tool that's a mission matching. So schools have put in all of this information about their curriculum, their environment, student body, what kind of a community is it, and then some special features for the medical school. And then you get to select this or that. I like to study mostly by myself, or I do well with group study, or I really want to do rural medicine over something else. So you're doing a forced pair matching, and we will see at the end, they're not even sure, it's still piloted. So they're not even sure how they're going to report it to the applicants, so that but it might help you know where you wouldn't think you would have a fit with a school, but you might see a fit when they do decide how to share that information with applicants. So it has no place in our interview process at all. No decisions will be made on it. It's a quick 15 or 20 minutes, which is just, you would be contributing to a body of work. So that's Duet. So I'm glad to re-emphasize this. Welcome, welcome. You're all welcome, very welcome. And I think that was maybe for the presentation. I don't know, maybe there was something above there. Oh, Vanessa put the questions in the chat. Thank you, Vanessa. Awesome. And so I'm glad to reiterate this. I want to say Procrute. I hope that is close. Coming to a campus visit or not does not work against you in any way. It doesn't work for you in any way, because admissions committee deliberations have passed. We are going to invite our applicants to come to that campus luncheon, but if they can't make it, it doesn't count against a person at all. I think we all across the country have ways to separate those decisions. Some schools are only going to invite accepted students to their campus visit program to make sure that distance is there. But because Texas has a match, we want people to be there for the decision, for any decision making to see the campus. I think we have a lot of students in our classes in the last couple of years that have made the decision without a visit to campus. Some of you may have decided on a college without going to campus. We want you to be able to see it. Let's see. So I hope that answered that. Is there something online? No, Angela, I really think I just hit it all. I think what commonly is overlooked is the opportunity to practice in all kinds of ways, like reviewing your application and finding examples in your journey to answer questions and those kinds of things. If I think of anything, I'll tell you. How do schools use the Casper and the snapshot? So I told you how we use our video interview. It's a chance for us to have a look at you in person, since we all don't get to interview everyone. And we do not use the Casper until the committee assessment. So many people have done it. So we do not use the Casper to screen out anybody. for an interview. So we don't even look at it until midway through the cycle. When a lot of people have done the Casper, we will find people who maybe we hadn't invited yet, or other things aren't quite standing out for us, but the Casper stands out. We will, so it only affects you in a positive way. So if you have a very positive Casper, we will invite you. And it's one little, people ask how important it is, or, you know, is it a main contributor? We look at a million different things. Like literally our database goes out to the H and I. When we look at everything about a person, it's 26 times 5 or 6. I added it up the other day. I can't remember. We look at hundreds of things. Where you're from, do you speak languages? You know, are you first generation? Are you first generation graduate? I mean, just a million kinds of things in addition to the highlights of your application. Let's make sure we get these. For determining what applicants would be receiving an interview at the Long School of Medicine, does the committee look at every applicant's experiences and essays? You know, because of the volume, Comfort, people do look at metrics a lot as a screening tool, but those ranges are very broad for us. We and a number of other schools continue to review all through the cycle. So we never stop reviewing. Nobody's ever put into a status where you're completed and where you're completed. We just keep everybody active in one status, under review, under review, under review. So we keep pulling things in. So yeah, there's quite a volume. But again, I think people look at many elements, and part of the screening process for a lot of them is at least your demographics, your metrics, and maybe the personal statement. Those are some very common things to look at in screening. We try to look at experiences as well. Okay, I hope that helped you. How do we make a positive impression at the interview? I think I answered that question in the last hour, right? And you know, I'm sure that there might be schools where you think you're not as interested, but I would stay engaged, stay pumped up, stay enthusiastic, and let all that stuff come across, because you just never know what's going to happen. Status. So status is a reapplicant. Yes. So status is a reapplicant. So we had an increase in reapplicants this year because of the 20% increase in applicants the year prior. There are 50,000 applicants every year and rising, and 20,000 spots in medical schools, not rising so much, not rising at the same rate. So there are 30,000 people, 30,000 who don't get in. Lots of those are reapplicants. If you're passionate and people, you're doing a critical review, you're trying to improve and work towards this goal, it might take some time. And we every year have people who have applied again once or 2 times or 4 times. You know, I've given you examples before of a great medical student who got in on the 7th time, you know. So just keep doing good things, you know, and work on what you need to work on. Interview day would be, so for us, Ruby, it's morning to afternoon. Yes. So our interview day at Long School of Medicine looks like this. You come in, it's very fun. It's fun. It's a wedding every week, and it's tiring for everybody, but in such a good way. So you have a social the night before. That's virtual, unless people on their own do some unofficial in-person things. But we have social where people can just talk to our students and kind of get comfortable. We have welcome rooms in the morning. Those are hosted by our medical students. So 5 or 7 or 10 students are in a little breakout room while the A team sorts out everybody, make sure nobody's missing, make sure everybody's here and that we see your first and last names and know who everybody is, that kind of thing. And then I give you about 5 or 10 hours worth of information in 50 minutes. That's a challenge. There's just so much that I could say that is great about this school, but you get that. And then what do we do, Vanessa? Then 10:30 to 12, Vanessa's going to correct me and make additions as I forget things. 10:30 to 12 is our 3-session block. 2 of those sessions will be interviews and 1 is a break time when you really can put your tile on, go mute, eat some things, get up and walk around. We really try to be efficient with the day. Sometimes people, occasionally on feedback, we say we need a break, but we give you like breaks make the day longer too. So we're trying to have a balance there. So that's a real break. And during that 3rd session, we give you presentations on our MPH dual degree program and our Center for Medical Humanities and Ethics, which is probably one of the best in the, I'm just going to say, the world now. There's so much happening with the center and so many students take advantage of the activities from the center. So you get to hear about that. Then everybody comes back at noon and has a student group answering questions, a student session, a student Q&A, and we call that the huddle. You huddle with our students, and then the next one is the expedition. So that's a live guided taped tour. So it's a virtual tour that you'll see, but with live guidance from our student tour guides. And then, so at about 1, we say goodbye, answer a few questions if any big things have come up or make announcements. At 1, we're saying goodbye about 1. At 1:15, those are the required parts of the interview day. A lot of people do take a break at that point and pop in from 1:15 to 2 student organizations. So SNMA, LMSA, do y'all know what these are? Vanessa will put them in the chat if you have questions. LMSA, SNMA, AMWA, Christians, Muslims, Jewish people. So we have all kinds of interest groups. Who else is there? Who else is there, Vanessa? I can't think right now.
A PAMSA.
A PAMSA, sorry, I left a PAMSA out. So all kinds of student groups come together, and sometimes pro-choice, pro-life, all kinds of groups. It's kind of a little virtual org fair. So they're in breakout rooms and our students pop in to talk to them for a few minutes about those various missions of the various student organizations. And then the day is over. So it's a great day. I'm so glad you asked, Ruby. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And I just said one thing about reapplicants, but there's more in the the applicant workshop, and there's a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 is the presentation, and part 2 is a lot of Q&A. So you might find some specific answers in there. It absolutely does not reflect poorly on somebody who is a reapplicant. Absolutely not. Okay, nor somebody who's non-traditional and been out a while, you know, and had gap years and things like that. So let's see. If one naturally has strength in expressing topics in writing over speaking, then I could see where that person might be a little nervous about an interview. So you're going to practice communicating. You know, you're going to practice. You're going to talk to friends. You're going to grab your brother or your mom or your cousin or somebody, a classmate or somebody to practice with, so that you become more skilled at the interview session. And once you do this, I mean, don't we practice on things and we watch ourselves grow, right? So, so please do that. And I think that will really help you. What questions should I ask during an interview? I think I covered that. So don't ask a question just to be able to ask a question. And it's, if you do run across something And it's not, so the wide open questions like, that Center for Medical Humanities and Ethics seems so neat. Can you tell me more about it? So I don't know that that's an appropriate one. And I think a better question is to be more specific. Like, can people actually do the distinction in global health and also take part in other parts of medical school? You know, that's, so if you can be more specific for the interviewer, that'll be good. Matthew, what can I help you with?
I have a quick question about
Yes.
the MD PhD application as well. So I'm applying to both the MD and the MD PhD, and MD PhDs through AMCAS.
Yes.
Does the TIMDOS, like your personal characteristics and optional essay, also go to the MD PhD application, even though it's through AMCAS?
Does what go
I don't
to?
know,
Does,
because we apply to the MD PhD through AMCAS. Do they
Right.
also take into consideration our MD application through TIMDOS?
Oh, yes. Okay. So if you have applied to both, it is much easier for us to see you, consider you. We work very closely with our MSTP program, which you might know what that is, right? So MD PhD, for anybody who might not know and be interested, MD PhD is a dual degree program that many schools have. MSTP is an MD PhD program that has a special designation, endorsement, and funding from the NIH. So that takes some other accreditation. So our MD PhD program is did I say that right? Our MD PhD program is an MST, medical student training program, medical scientist, training program. When you, Matthew, have applied to both, it's easier for us to find you. We work with MD PhD. Our new upgrade in our software is going to make it easier for us to find components of the AMCAS. And tag people who they have interviewed. Those are experienced interviewers. We also have had situations where somebody is so great, but they've got 8 spots. We have 200 and something. So sometimes there is a pathway for people interested in research at all levels, including the MSTP. So we do have, in the last few years, we have had at least one a year, maybe more, who've started the regular MD program and gone on to the dual degree MSTP program out of first year. So, so that's a possibility. So yes, we will find you. Okay.
Thank you.
But it's easier for us to find you and consider you for the regular program if you also have that TMD SAS application. Good. Thank you, Vanessa, for putting that. About the recordings. You're very welcome. Sama. How do I say it? Was I close? Maybe they're gone. Okay, more questions? I like getting names right. Yeah, so one of you asked, what are the strategies for for answering the question, why our school or program? I kind of don't like that. I kind of don't like that. I don't like that. I think it invites people to be disingenuous. I think it invites an applicant. I think it puts an applicant on a spot a little bit, because what if you don't think yet that you're very enthusiastic about a school, then you have to feign excitement for it. I just don't think that that's a fair question, but if it's asked, come up with something. And this is where your research comes in handy. You know, I really like the schools, this and that. I never ask that question. We train our committee, like, don't ask the question, because they're going to tell you stuff that you see on the website. And I mean, I think that sometimes we can tell when there's a genuine interest. That's really not a factor in our decision to invite a person to be accepted. It's not a factor in acceptance. Do you like us or not is not a factor in acceptance, because you will let us know, because you'll either you'll accept it or you won't, or it'll be a hard decision for you and you won't, or it'll be a hard decision and you do stick with us. So I would say, read the school's website, mission, and strengths before you go. I hope that helped somebody who was asking that question. with some schools moving to in-person, how can we best prepare? So all of this, I think, helps you in a virtual setting or in an in-person setting. And most schools are not, actually. We have heard of like the vast majority, 90-something%, and this is all in the MSAR. And there still might be a few schools behind still trying to make that decision, but the vast majority are doing virtual this way because of equity, big equity component here, and then campus visits and separating those from decisions. So what resources do current students believe? Oh, this was good. Oh, I might need to pull out my email. So this is a good question. What resources do current students believe serve them best in no, I know the answer. Prepared you for the situational judgment exams. Very good question. And I checked with a student immersed in actually preparing for the mock and talk. And she said, yes, the Casper website is very good resource. I still would add the AAMC, but that YouTube and other, she didn't mention Reddit, but that there were so many resources on YouTube. And she also mentioned, I think she mentioned Googling some other like decision-making, problem-solving resources online. Vanessa, was there anything I left out? I catch it all?
I think you captured, yes, all the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. You are welcome. Yes, permanent residents and U.S. citizens are considered the same way. We can also see if, and let me just say again, that I know everybody is a little, can be frustrated with the DACA question. And we really, the majority of Texas schools in the TMDSAS system want to be able to consider DACA students and are working towards that goal. It's slow going, but we haven't given up. And we just had a last round of, a current round of effort there. So we'll keep you posted on that. And we do see if a person has applied for, so their permanent residency is pending. We see that. We need that to be completed before processing. And so if you know that your green card came through and we might not know that yet, please announce, email all the schools to tell us that your status changed. How do I prepare? Oh, this is good, because you'll see on that interview thing that Vanessa put in the chat, that list of interview questions, like one of the first ones is tell me about yourself. Very common for an interviewer to say, well, let's just start with you, and unless it's an MMI, let's just start with you and tell me a little bit about yourself. You should have this prepared. If we wanted to ask you about pre-med pathway or journey or professional things, we would say that. What usually we mean by that is like, what got you to this spot? I usually tell people born and raised, siblings, household, where were you? Did you move? Kind of thing. Major components. Chose this school because, I was a student athlete, an athlete student, then went on and got inspired by medicine by blank. For medicine by blank, and then let us start, make it 3 minutes or less. 2 minutes is probably better, and plan it out. This is a good one. This is a very good one. What if I don't get to tell my story? And I know we're over time. I know some of y'all have, we're way over time. So sorry about that, but they can see maybe the end on the video. What if I don't get to tell my story? If your interviewer took up that whole traditional interview time talking about themselves, then somewhere along, even if it's at the very end, and you have to say, I really enjoyed this. That was so neat to hear about your research and this and that. I hope you'll look at my section on my research and my activities in scribing, because they were very meaningful. I feel like they gave me a lot. So I hope you and the committee will get a chance to look at that, right? So you try to say it without like zinging them. no zingers, but you realize, you could say, I realize the time is up. That was so neat. Thank you so much for this interview. I hope you'll get a chance to see that this and this and this were like very meaningful to me, or pick one thing or two maybe. So that's how you could maneuver that. And how long are interviews? So it can vary. I know that there are schools with 15-minute interviews. There are schools with 6 stations at an MMI. Each station is 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So it's a varying length. Sometimes they have one traditional interview that's 45 minutes and one other, with standardized questions that's 15 minutes. It's a variety of answers to that question. So just check online before you go. Be prepared before you go. I was just wondering, are schools seeing similar numbers of applicants compared to last year? Last year's. So the 2021 pool was 20%, a 20% increase over the 2020 pool. That's entry year. So for our current MS1s, they were 20% greater. People found COVID shutdowns to be amenable to like spending the time. It's a very time consuming thing, right? And things got canceled. So people could, your activities were canceled, your gap year was canceled. So people, that accounted for some of the increase. This year that is concluding, 2022, reverted back to what 2019 or 2020 looked like. So a few hundred more for the Texas schools. Whatever that, a small increment increase for the AMCAS schools, but a little bit of increase. That was an aberrant year, apparently. So we'll see. We'll see what this year brings, but we're back on track with 19 and 20 for the applicants for this year for 22. Okay. So you are very welcome. I hope it helped you. We're going to say goodbye now. You're very welcome for everything. I hope some little pieces of this all along the way help you. And I look forward to seeing you again. Let's unmute while we say goodbye. The human way.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Nice to
Thank
see y'all.
you.
You're very welcome. Very nice to see y'all too. Take care. We'll see you
Thanks so
next
much.
time. You're very welcome. Click.